Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Today's episode we're going to talk about some of the upgrades we've done to our trailer. Some of the things went right, some of the things went wrong, and just how everything is working in general. For starters, we're going to talk about the bike rack hitch that we built. This is the most recent addition to our trailer. And a good friend of mine had some scrap metal laying around that we were able to use. This is just actually attached by angle iron and U-bolts to the front A-frame of the trailer. And we had our Kuat bike rack in here, and our two bikes. I have a mountain bike and the wife has a cruiser style bike. We had both of those bikes on all the way to South Beach in Newport and back home. No problems at all. They rode quite well. It actually worked really well. Seems to be good and strong. Had some movement to the bike rack when we hit bumps and corners and that sort of thing, but all in all it worked really well and everything's holding up well, so I'll consider that a win. Another thing we had some comments about was our battery setup and our inverter setup. One of the comments was questioning whether the batteries were lead acid. They are not. I have the Lion Energy UT 1300 lithium batteries. Each one has 105 amp hours of capacity, and those are hooked up to our 2000 watt inverter. Sonia was able to use the 2000 watt inverter with her sewing machine when we were up visiting my brother. It was really nice. We were up there, we were trying out a new 200 watt Renogy solar panel attached to the batteries and the inverter, and even though he had electrical hookups there, we stayed off of the electrical hookups, and we were able to run her sewing machine and her iron and the trailer while we were there, all off of the battery banks. We were only there for a couple of nights, and we did do some cooking and some other things in the house, so we weren't using the trailer the whole time. But I think especially for this upcoming trip to Alaska, that it's going to come in really handy to have this inverter, and it's working really well, so we're happy with that. One of the things we've had some questions and comments on is our counter extension. We've had a couple of people comment about why doesn't it hinge down, and the reason for that is underneath here is a power receptacle and our switches for the water pump and the water heater and for our tank levels. It's all underneath here, and if it hinged it would cover all of that up. We didn't want to cover that up. We wanted access to those switches and to the electrical outlet, so we left it off. And the way this is set up is there's one bolt in the back, and that bolt holds it down to the three supports that we've attached. And it's all on a wing nut, so you can take it off. And then once the bolt is free, it'll all come out, and then the whole thing can come off. Now this is 11 and a quarter wide, and it is 22 7/8 long. Now the length is just to fit with the counter itself. Could have made it just a hair longer, but it sits flush with the face of the counter or the cabinets. And the reason why it only comes out as far as it does is we can still lift the bed up and put the bed down with this up. We rarely ever take this off. These supports are simple 1x2 boards that I cut and attached together in an L shape, and then this is 1/4 inch plywood that I cut as gussets and glued and nailed them to the sides. Now each one of these is attached by a screw that goes through the cabinet wall, but as you know, RVs, these cabinet walls are really thin. They're that really small, like 1/8 inch thick siding, and it's not all that strong. So once I drilled in, I came in from underneath, and I did not have to remove the sink to do this. And I took a scrap of 1x4 that I had and it sits inside, and this screw goes into that. So there's a lot of surface area for this to be held onto. So this and this one both go through. They have the scrap 1x4 pieces that I cut and installed inside the cabinet for these bolts to go in. And then this one is, I believe I put a command strip on the back of it, but it is just a single bolt going into the wall. It did not hit any structural part, so it's just in the thin wall membrane. So it's not all that strong. That's why I put a command strip on it. But with it in place, we find that we can get to our electrical, we can get to our switches with the extension in place, and that's why we designed it the way we did. And it's only as deep as it is so that we can lift and lower the bed with it in place, because like I said, we rarely ever take this off. Now, one thing I will say is when we first finished this, I finished this with a shellac, and I put 3 coats of a shellac finish on it, and then a coat of wood wax on top of that. It looked really nice, but it didn't really offer a lot of protection to the wood. This is some redwood that Sonia's dad had that we inherited. He was going to build her a hope chest out of it when she was young and never got around to it. So we wanted to be able to use some of that redwood. And some friends of ours do woodwork, a lot more woodwork than I do, and they suggested putting an epoxy finish on it. So we got both the counter extension and the sink cover to them, and they were able to clean up and sand up the old wax finish that I had on here and epoxy finished them. And the epoxy gives it a good hard surface, and previously when we had the other finish on, it got a lot of dings and dents and scratches pretty easily. This epoxy has been great. It's a really nice, shiny, very nice looking finish, but it's also very strong, and it protects the wood a lot better than what we had before. So we really like this epoxy finish, and I would recommend that to anyone doing similar woodwork here. But that's how we built it, and it all again holds on with just this single bolt. And once you put the bolt through, you put the wing nut through, tighten it from the bottom, and it holds our pots and pans. It holds what we need it to hold. And the sink cover has been working great. We love the fact that you can still turn the water on and have water go by with this on. And the epoxy finish on this has also been a huge upgrade. So the previous finish I had on these wasn't any good. This new epoxy finish is the way to go. Another topic we've had some questions on and comments on is our medicine cabinet. This is a medicine cabinet I made out of scrap wood I had here after another project. The frame of the door itself is just some 1x2 that I had. I took a router to the back and routered in a bevel so that I could use some mirror. We had some scrap mirror laying around. If you look close, you can still see some scratches on the back side. You can see through it, but hey, it works great. Gives us a mirror in the bathroom, which is a positive. And then this is 1x4 that I used. I used a saw to cut these pieces down so they're thinner, so they don't come flush. They're about 1/8 of an inch back from the face of the cabinet itself. And in the back of the cabinet, I did the same thing with my router. I cut in a bevel in the inside, and then I glued and nailed a piece of 1/4 inch plywood as the backer. The backer has, I want to say, 9 or more command strips that I used to attach that to the wall itself initially. And then, I mean, this cabinet sits about almost exactly 2 inches from the edge of the window frame. The cabinet itself is 9 inches wide. And then on the inside, I measured 1 inch in from each side to set the screws. And just thankfully and luckily, when I set these 2 inner screws, both of these hit an aluminum structured piece. So 2 of these screws went into aluminum. But then with all the backer boards and everything else, we have not had an issue at all. It's been super solid. The one issue we did have is I initially just put in the magnetic catch, and we found, which most of the time the magnetic catch works just fine. We have found on some bumpy roads it will come open. So we added a small latch that we picked up at the hardware store, and since we've added that, we have not had any issues. But this has been a really solid addition. It's nice to have that extra storage space. It's nice to have the mirror in here, and things just worked out really well. So it's 9 inches wide and it is 20 inches tall. And again, I just used 1x4. 1x4 is actually 3/4 wide by 3.5 inches wide on the outside, but they call it 1x4. I don't know enough about lumber to tell you why it's called 1x4 when it's actually 3/4 by 3.5, but that's just the way it is. But I mean, I went on the cheap when I built this. It's all scrap I had from previous projects, including the mirror. So I mean, other than buying this metal latch later and the metal catch for inside, it was pretty much free, just going to my scrap pile because I'd already spent that money on other things. Another upgrade I'll talk about right now is in previous video I had found that the shape of my shower pan allowed water to come out and leak, and we thought it was internal. We later found that it wasn't after I tore it all apart. Since I've done the recalking and cleaning up of that corner, we have not had another leak so far, knock on wood. But it has been working. There's been no issues with that. Yeah, and the shower curtain upgrade, we added a aftermarket bigger shower curtain so it goes around further, and it actually wraps both on the front and the back of the shower curtain itself, because in previous with the factory shower curtain that came with the R-Pod, we did have issues with it not closing enough. It was just not enough material on the shower curtain itself, so that's why we went with this is a full residential size shower curtain, and then we purposely added a hook on the inside so we could wrap around this when you close it to take your shower, and it's wrapped around on the back as well, about the same distance. I'd say about 8 inches or so. Yeah, I'd say it wraps around about 8 inches or even more than that, and that has given us full water protection. So and between the fixing of that corner and the adding of the shower curtain, again, knock on wood, we have not had any other leaks. Another upgrade we've done in the past videos is this upgrade to this new converter. The original converter that came with the R-Pod was not lithium battery capable, so we changed to this. It's a progressive dynamics, and that's covered in that previous video. And since changing, the only issue we had when we initially changed this is, for some reason, the 12-volt converter part of the original, for some reason, was out of the box. It failed. But we got a hold of Progressive Dynamics, told them what was going on, gave them the serial number, and they were super fast in sending me a new board for the 12-volt side. I put that in, and we have not had an issue since. So, you know, I have to give thumbs up, even though there was an issue with the Progressive Dynamics. Initially, they were very quick to solve it and got us working and up and running in no time at all. But with this up, we've also had no issues keeping our batteries charged, and now having the battery monitor to go along with the 2000 watt inverter, it's been really nice to be able to see where the batteries are at. I mean, right now we've been back from a camping trip, I'd say at least a month ago, and our batteries are still sitting at 98%. I can read it from sitting right here. But yes, this new converter has worked out really well. It's kept our lithium batteries charged when we're plugged into power, and it's given us no issue at all. So we're happy with that. You're probably wondering why there's a big hole where our microwave normally sits. So we are planning a trip to Alaska. And in doing so, we're trying to keep the cost down for our Alaska trip. One of the things we're looking at is boondocking on a regular basis. And we have been testing things. I've got a small Predator 2000 watt inverter generator, and it's just not quite enough to run the factory microwave convection oven that comes with the RPod 192. We tested it with our in-home microwave, which is a smaller microwave, and it can run that microwave no problem at all. So what we're going to do is I've pulled this microwave out, and then the night before we leave to Alaska, we're pulling the house smaller microwave and putting it in here. And that's why these boards are in here, and there's a support board in the back, so it will fit right here. And then we're probably going to take some pool noodles or some other type of foam up on top to press down on it to hold it in place while we're traveling. But that's why there is no microwave in there right now, is we are going to switch it out so that we have a microwave we can run on the generator, so that when we're off grid, which it sounds like we're going to be, I don't know, 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the time when we're up in Alaska, we're going to be off grid. We want to be able to run our generator and our microwave, so that's why there's a big hole there. Another thing we've done, I don't know if we've talked about this on previous video, we may have, but we used to travel with this strap holding the table down with the table legs in place. The problem we had was, and I don't even know how it happened, but the back support that you can't quite see because it's too dark in there, it was moving around enough in travel that the screws were actually coming up out of the floor. I found bigger screws and we were able to fix it, but to try to prevent that from happening again, whenever we travel, we now break the table down. Well, we didn't know what to do with the table legs, so Sonia, being the industrial sort, she got some fabric out and made this bag. And we can now put our table legs inside the bag, store them in the bag during travel, and the bag fits nicely underneath the strap. And with the table down and the legs here, we have not had an issue since. So that's just something to think about. I hope other people that have the RPod have not had the same issue, but this is how we found to transport the best, so that we don't pull our floor supports out anymore. Since we've gone to this transport style, we haven't had any further issues. I mean, the only thing, if you want to talk about it, is you can see in the back where the table rubs against the wall, it's marked the wall up. But other than that, it's done really well. But we also make sure we have these scrap cloths that we put down below the buckle, so that it doesn't scratch the tabletop itself up. But that's how we travel, and it seems to work really well for us. We just want to take an opportunity at the end of this video to say thank you. There's so many of you that have made comments or asked questions on our YouTube videos, and we really, really appreciate the input, the advice, the questions. I'm doing the best to try to get the answers out. I know I'm not the quickest. We do struggle a little bit when it comes to technology. We are both just blown away by the views we've received on our videos, how many people have taken the time out of their life to watch our trips and our advices and our RV tours and all that we do. It's just amazing to us. We started this channel just as kind of an effort to let our friends and family watch what we were doing on our big trip in 2021, and we've kept it going, and we've had a lot of fun. And just thank you so much for coming along on our journey. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions. We'll try to do better in the future in responding to you, and look forward to taking you along. We got a neat trip planned up to Alaska and back, and we're hoping to bring you guys along and show you the sights and give you some tips, and hopefully you can come along on our adventure. Thanks again.